struggling to move your nonprofit forward? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Nonprofit Architect, where we are giving you the actionable steps you need to launch and grow your nonprofit organization. Now, here's your host, Travis Johnson.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. But before we get started, I wanted to give you all the opportunity to hop in our group at facebook.com/group/nonprofit architect. Now let's go to the interview. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm sitting here with the lovely Cynthia Gregory. Cynthia, how are you doing today?
I'm so well, Travis. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Got up on time, got ready for the day, did yoga this morning before all my conversations, and here I am ready to rock and roll. We're going to get into leadership wellness and what that looks like and how you can implement that in your world. But first, let's hear a little bit about Cynthia and what do you do, Cynthia?
I'm a coach. I'm a certified life coach. I'm a member of the International Coaching Federation. I have a master's degree in fine arts from Mills College, so I'm also a writing coach in addition to a nonprofit coach. I've spent 20-some years in nonprofit leadership, and it was a natural transition for me to go from nonprofit leadership to supporting nonprofit leadership because I think I have a pretty good idea of, the challenges and the rewards, both that nonprofit leaders carry valiantly every day, and I want to support that.
That's excellent. I love that mission. I've been talking to nonprofit leaders for the better part of 2 years now, and so many of them are either, I find them in one camp or the other camp. In one camp, they say no to everything, and they get their nose down and they're only focused on what they're focused on, or they say yes to everything, and they're running around ragged, doing all this crazy work, wondering, they're just making a lot of motion, but not really accomplishing everything, but they are also wore out at the same time. So I'm glad you're on today to talk about leadership wellness. What is leadership wellness? I think you said mission fatigue is the words that you use in our what is that?
Basically, a lot of what I do is values alignment. It's like you do this kind of work because you have values. You're compassionate. You're a humanitarian. You either care about animals or children or education or art or whatever your jam is. And you give so much that you have trouble saying no when you should be saying no. And you get a little bit of mission slip going on. And it's really easy to put yourself last when you're a do-gooder, compassionate being, and you've got staff that you're taking care of, or you have clients that you're taking care of. And they all tend to start to take precedence over, the leadership role. You're serving your mission, but often to your own detriment, because you're not refilling your own cup. You're not putting your own oxygen mask on first so you can be a better leader. And so you start burning out. I've seen a lot of it. And there's a reason that there's a really high turnover rate in the nonprofit world. I think it's largely due to compassion fatigue or mission fatigue.
It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You've got this drive for this mission, and it's a business that doesn't sound like a business, and it's numbers driven and it's finance driven, and you get in there and you have to go. You don't have time to train. You don't have time to take care of yourself or your staff, or at least seemingly don't have the time.
Well, so for so long, it was really funny too. And I would say, I'm a nonprofit leader, and people go, oh, that's so nice. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's nice, but it's not like it's also a business, like you said. It's numbers driven. If you don't make your metrics, then you can't serve your mission. And so you kind of got this double bind going on where you just do more. You're just an object in motion all the time. And if you don't stop periodically to clear the deck and do something good for your body, like take a walk or drink more water or get enough sleep when you need it, it will definitely take a toll on you, and then you won't be able to serve your mission. So it's like the old woodcutter story, right? There's two woodcutters, and they're having a contest who can cut the most wood. Woodcutter one is like, she's at it. She's cutting those logs, and she's doing really well. Woodcutter number two stops every hour and sharpens her blade. At the end of the contest, who do you think is going to cut more wood?
Just based on your body language, I'm going to say woodcutter number two.
Because she's taking the time to readjust, to take the space away, to maybe adapt or readapt, that you don't have the opportunity when you're just action driven.
Yeah, a little time to rejuvenate, a little bit more time to sharpen your axe and move forward. And yeah, I can definitely
get some perspective. Or here's another thing that hardly any nonprofit leaders do is hang out with other nonprofit leaders and learn. And that peer learning is so important, because you think, oh, I'm having this challenge and nobody else could be having this kind of challenge. There must be, it's just specific to me. And very often I've found in working with groups of nonprofit leaders, they have so much to teach one another. I'd love to break down those barriers.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm sure the promo for the Nonprofit Architect Alliance Mastermind Group ran before this episode started. And it's exactly what we do. You've got a bunch of people in a room that talk about mission fatigue. They're talking about the struggles that they have. They're talking about a board member that they just cannot get to see the light. And you have other nonprofit leaders in there be like, I went through that same thing a couple of years ago, and here's what we did. And this might work for you, or I might find a way to tweak it to make it work for you. But here's a lifeline. Take it, please. And me being in the Navy and being in the nonprofit world and having friends in a ton of different sectors, military, police, fire, first responders, and nonprofit leaders don't like talking about the things they're struggling with. And they hold on to it for years and years and years. And then they finally open up to someone and they realize instantly that they're not alone. It's not that bad. Other people are going through the exact same thing. And why didn't I open up sooner? Oh my goodness. Why didn't I open up sooner? Because as soon as you mention it, you get relief.
Right. And you get that recognition of a kindred spirit, right? It's like, oh, I'm no longer alone. And I think it kind of harkens back to what I said. People's response so often was like, oh, that's so wonderful. You do that work. And I'm like, well, yes, it is. And so I think people maybe have a tendency to maybe feel guilty if they want to take time for themselves because they're doing this noble work. How dare they think of themselves, right? But it's really thinking of themselves is, in fact, serving that purpose, serving that mission.
I know for me that if I'm not working out, if I'm not getting the right amount of sleep, if I'm not hydrating and getting enough water to sustain this system I try to run on the inside of me, if I'm not taking time in prayer and meditation, if I'm not, doing these things on a daily or, semi-weekly basis, that my body is going to start getting cranky. I'm going to be like, oh, why is my voice not sounding right? Why am I tired today? Why am I thinking that brownie's a good idea? Did I not get enough sleep? What is it in me that is in need that says, hey, extra calories would be good right now? It's not because I need the extra calories. It's because I'm tired or I'm wore out or whatever the thing is. And if I'm not taking time to focus or rejuvenate or all of those things, I'm not able to deliver, in this case, the best podcast. I'm not able to have the best interview. I'm distracted, or I'm falling asleep at the wheel, sometimes quite literally, because I've not taken the time to make sure that I'm ready to go for whatever it is. And, they don't really teach us growing up, right? You don't get this in school. You don't get the wellness piece. You don't get the mental health talk. You don't, as far as I understand it, this stuff is lacking. So if you didn't have a parent that was keen on these things and made it a point to bring up, that's not even something that you think about. But if you're listening to this right now and you're like, yep, sounds like me, I'm tired, I'm ragged, I'm getting grouchy at people for no reason, all these things, you have to take time to rejuvenate. And what might that look like, Cynthia?
Oh, gosh, so many things. You mentioned a couple of them, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, keeping hydrated. Your blood is a lot, we're 60 to 70% water, right? Blood has got oxygen, which, flows up into your brain. If you are not getting enough oxygen to your brain, you're not thinking well. And another thing here that's really important about taking those meditation breaks, those prayer breaks, that walk around the block once an hour, get away from your desk, get up and walk around the block or walk around the parking lot, do something to kind of break so that you can come back fresher. You have less to offer. So you can meditate. They have so many great apps now that you can just, they've got a Calm app. You can 5 minutes, take a 5-minute break and just go and breathe. You come back feeling so much better. Get out and move your body. Get out of your head and into your body. Move your body. Our bodies need that workout in order to perform at optimum levels. You can have a conversation with friends, do Zooms, Zoom happy hour just to get together with friends and say howdy, pet the dog, talk to the cat, do something that just kind of makes you feel good and lowers your stress levels. When you're stressed out, when you're burned out, you're operating from the primitive part of your brain. You're shutting down the prefrontal cortex. Stress shuts this down. You can't make good decisions when you're stressed out. So actually, taking care of yourself is better for your nonprofit. It's better for the people that, benefit from your mission. So you can be a better leader by taking better care of yourself.
Absolutely. I love the 5-minute break idea. This is something I think I've talked about in a couple other shows. For whatever reason in my life, I've been surrounded by single moms, and they're just running themselves ragged because they're responsible for everything. And my heart goes out to them. And I always mention the 5-minute break before you go into the grocery store, because there's no one watching. No one has any idea how long it takes to grocery shop. Nobody knows. It's an imaginary number, right? You could run in and grab milk and cereal and be on your way, or you could be there for a stinking hour and a half. Nobody knows. There's no time limit. It's not a sport you watch on TV and you know exactly how long the quarters are. It's not a thing. Go there, turn on your favorite music or no music at all. Bring up the Calm app, the Headspace app, whatever meditation app you got. Whatever your thing is, death metal, I don't care. But throw it on for 5 minutes and just sit in your car. You don't have to slam on the brakes, spring out of the car, run through, what was it, like sweepstakes where you would like run through the supermarket and grab all this stuff? It's not that. You can take the few minutes before you go in there all to yourself.
It gives you more resilience. You are less reactive. Your cortisol levels aren't supercharging throughout your bloodstream as well, which, cortisol is not our friend. Chronic stress is not our friend, which has made this year particularly interesting. But chronic stress can lead to chronic disease. So if you care about your future, your children and your children's children, you want to be around for them and to serve the mission that you care so passionately about, it starts with some self-care, self-respect, and self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. You're worth taking care of.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a Stanford professor who wrote a book called Positive Intelligence, and he talks about taking a break. These apps are so great, but he goes, if you can just take 3 deep breaths, 4 counts in, hold for 2 counts, 6 counts out, and while you're doing that, you circle your thumb and your finger together so lightly that you can feel your fingerprint, and you breathe for 3 short breaths. Your stress level just drops to the floor. It's amazing. So yeah, you don't have to, train for a marathon or, be a CrossFit, superstar. And you can just sit quietly in your car and listen to Calm or Mindspace for 5 minutes, and you've got enough to keep you going for another couple hours.
I find it's important to, when you get stressed out, to really reflect on a couple things. One of them is what you are and what you're really doing. And that involves looking back at the mission. And like, is the thing that I'm doing or freaking out about or whatever the thing is, how is this related to the mission? Is it related to the mission? If not, why are you doing it?
Exactly. It's your why, as Simon Sinek calls it. It's your why. Your what is your mission, but your why is what drives your mission. Why is this important to you? What is it about this work that you do that you find fulfilling? And why is that important? And it comes back to values every single time. And if it's outside of the mission, if it's outside of your value space, you don't have to reject it out of hand. You can put it in the parking lot to think about it later. But if you stay focused on your mission, you'll be able to deliver on your mission if you're not all distracted by all this noise.
My day job is I fly the E-6B Mercury for the Navy. It's nuclear command and control, which is a big deal. But they do a great job of anything that comes up that's a problem, making it the most important thing going on in the world right now. And I don't believe that all to be true. Not everything can be an emergency. And we have such a tendency that if something's out of whack, we've got to fix it. We've got to fix it right now. And I think that happens in the nonprofit world. If something's not going quite right, or if something pops up, or if a donor is upset, or whatever the thing is, we think it's an emergency and we have to fix it right this moment. Something that I've learned, being around aircraft for the last 20 years is it's got to get fixed. It's got to get lubed. It has to have corrosion control done on it. It's got to have all this maintenance, some of it when it breaks and some of it on a regular basis to make sure it's operating properly, just like your car would. If you're not changing the oil, it's not going correctly. And this goes in your life too. Just because you get an email that pops up doesn't mean everything else has to stop and you have to answer this email. It's not that big of a deal. Just because you lost a donor doesn't mean you can no longer do your mission. Just because we just went through Giving Tuesday here, just because Giving Tuesday wasn't what you thought it was, doesn't mean all of a sudden your whole mission is at a grinding halt because you couldn't happen. One event is not going to solve world hunger, and one event isn't going to make you close your doors. It's the things you do each and every day, time after time, that's going to keep that needle moving forward and keep you moving towards your mission. So please don't put so much stress on one little thing.
Well, and if you're a high achiever, which many, nonprofit leaders are, we judge ourselves harshly because we have very high expectations. We want to save the world, darn it. And anything less than that is just not good enough. And you make such a great point of sometimes we have to just stop and say, you know what, that Giving Tuesday event was not what we had hoped for. And yet we were able to generate 25 new donors. We have 25 new people who demonstrated a belief in our mission so much that they gave us money. They trusted us with their money to support this cause. And that's something to celebrate, because those 25 donors may not be giving you a lot today, but you steward them correctly and, you may have a major donor eventually. And they're going to tell all their friends, and those friends are going to tell their friends. So there are no small victories, I think, in the nonprofit world. You just have to appreciate them for what they are and what they portend, what they reflect.
Absolutely. So you didn't start off in the nonprofit world. You actually went to school for journalism. Is that right?
I did. And then I was living in Southern California. So I'm a writer, and I love writing. I'm passionate about writing. And I was doing public relations for my church, and I was doing it as a volunteer. And then somebody else hired me to do PR for a nonprofit. And I was like, wait, I can get paid for this? This is great. I don't have to work for the bank or, work for the man. I can work for, I can do something that is in alignment with my values, and I can make a career out of it. That's awesome. So I started in, journalism, PR, and marketing, and then eventually threw my resume toward a hospital in Berkeley for an annual giving director. And they interviewed me, and I was like, well, I've never done this before, but I think I can do it. And as it turns out, marketing and fundraising go hand in glove because people can't give you money if they don't know the need exists. So that was the start of a beautiful thing. And I've been fundraising since.
Well, it's awesome. And you're also a writing coach. And we've had Shannon Whittington on who ran Books by Vets, and I was on her board. And she's a writer coach, but we helped veterans and veterans and first responders hear their story at the time was wonderful. And you do the same thing. Do you recommend that nonprofits write a book?
Absolutely. It's a great way to tell your story. It's a wonderful framework, and it makes a great gift when you can carry with you and go, oh, here, please take this, or please share this with your friends. It's a great marketing tool, and if it tells your story, the story of your passion, the world needs it. If you have a need to tell a story, the world needs to hear it. So yes, absolutely. I have a lot of fun helping people write their books as well. I have a second book coming out. Will be out in early 2021. And last year I made a goal to write another 5 books in the next 10 years. So I got to keep them coming out. I've got book 3 outlined, and I already have ideas for book 4. So be careful what you wish for. Because
Well, I'm actually looking at book 3 and 4 myself. I did my first one with Shannon, and it was part of the Walk with Warriors project, and on Amazon. I write a chapter in about my life, and if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you've heard me talk about my story a little bit. And if you ever checked out my bio and any of the links that I have, you're like, oh wow, what, really? This is the guy? I had no idea. You wouldn't get that from what he talks about when he does. But and then I was in personal finance for a while. I helped 400 families pay off $6 million in debt, and I wrote a car buying guide, which got one review, and is a terrible review, which is very hilarious to me because I saved $30,000 on my truck, and I saved $30,000 on the truck before this. And he's like, "This is all just nonsense." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, you have a hard time saying no when someone's presenting you with a car." But book 3 and 4, I was going to write a story about startup nonprofits, and there's a lot of books out there about nonprofit work, but most of them aren't very readable and relatable. It's kind of a step-by-step how-to, which there's nothing wrong with, and we definitely need those things, but they're not very exciting. So I was trying to write a book more like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where it's a story. And it's a story of discovery and someone, bumping into someone that creates a question or a spark about them and what their journey into nonprofit might look like. And it's designed to be readable, relatable, and actionable. And it's really how it answers all the questions that I get from startup nonprofits, like, should I start a nonprofit? Why? And it'll define what your life might look like if you're ready to start a nonprofit. And a lot of it becomes a discussion between a gentleman and his friend who is a nonprofit consultant as he encounters different scenarios and what that might look like. And it's not just one of those feel-good stories where like, oh, I started a nonprofit and everything was wonderful. The goal and some of the struggles that I weave in there, it's, you've got a nonprofit board member that's like leaking false information to a reporter. You've got a life change in there where you've got another kid on the way. And should you continue on with your mission and what you're doing, or should you pass the baton? Have a volunteer that ends up stealing from the organization and how you might handle those problems. So it's really designed to be a story that you can get involved in and see yourself in the driver's seat and what that might look like. And then there was a second book I was looking at. Are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
Oh, yes. The 4-Hour Week is my favorite. I love that.
It's my favorite book. It's a book that sparked a lot of what I'm doing. The 4-Hour Work Week is phenomenal. And if you haven't read that and you're listening to this right now, I recommend that for everybody because it's just such a different way to look at the human condition and what we're doing or not doing in business and how to really create and design what you want your life to look like.
He's an amazing thought leader. I mean, he just broke the mold. Absolutely.
But he's got this great book, Tools of Titans, and he has all these different interviews that he's conducted. And he's got, it's not a read through book. It's a pick the thing you want to learn about and hop to that chapter. And it's got like something like 200 interviews in there. And I'm like, I could do that. I could put that together for my guests and the different areas that we talk about. So you could turn to a section about board governance and see what all my guests have had to say over all the many interviews that I've conducted, or what does it say about fundraising and who's got the best formula or a formula that fits our vision for what fundraising look like. So that's kind of my next 2 projects. It's going to take a little while to get there. Some other things I'm doing first, but those are the thoughts of where I'm at with publishing my next couple of books.
Yeah, I think that it's like, I believe that everybody has a story. Not everybody thinks their story is interesting, but I think that everybody has an amazing story. And that's just part of our legacy of being human. And then expressing that story, if you're really passionate, then there's a clue. If you're really passionate about something, chances are you have something really unique to say about it. Like my nonprofit work, I focus on wellness. I could focus on fundraising. I could focus on board development, things that I'm really good at. But in terms of priority of passion, wellness every time. And that makes my decisions so much easier because while those are good, I can refer people to you, or I can refer people to, others who are serving that function. And so I think as our culture grows more sophisticated, we become more specialized, and we can zero in on those things. Because again, we're not alone. If we have an idea that we're really excited about, chances are there are a whole lot of other people who want to tap into that.
If you're listening to this right now and you just heard me explain the 2 types of books I'm getting ready to write, drop me a line. Go to nonprofitarchitect.org and there's a contact me form. Say, write this book, and then pick which one you want me to write first. If people decide like, hey, Travis, we're not interested in your books, let me know. Then I won't waste my time writing a book. If you really want the story of the startup nonprofit and what that might look like, let me know. Let me know that's the one you want me to write first, because that's the one you're going to want to buy. If you're like, Travis, I'm not interested in that story business. I want to hear what your guests have to say about all these different topics, and I want that book first. Let me know. You can't get what you want if you don't let people know what you want. If you, I got done reading, what the heck was it? Call Sign Chaos with Jim Mattis. He's got a 3-step communication process that if you haven't heard before, it's fantastic. It's step 1, what do I know? Step 2, who needs to know? And the all important step 3, have I told them? So if you have something that is on your mind, on your heart, something you want to tell me about, you need to tell me, but you haven't told me yet, drop me a line in that communication form so I can get the feedback I need to help make your experience better. If not, I'm just going to go with whatever I feel like doing, and you may or may not like it. So there.
So that was a lesson in market research right there.
Yeah. Tell me what you want.
Tell me what you want.
What you really want. We're playing categories the other night. My dad was in town, and S was the one that came up, and I forget what the thing was, but my wife put down Spice Girls. And I thought that was just hilarious. I haven't thought about them in years, but I did enjoy their music and definitely their energy. Tell me about a time where you met someone with just so much energy and passion that you couldn't help but talk to them forever.
Wow. I think somebody that absolutely changed my life in a really remarkable way. And he was just so low key about it. There was a winery in Napa Valley called Schaefer Vineyards. And when I was recruited to be the executive director of the foundation that I worked for in Napa, I got a call from John Schaefer and offering me the job, and nobody turns down John Schaefer. And he was in his 80s, and he was the most amazing man. And we would meet weekly once I made the transition to Napa and I was running the foundation, and we would meet, and he was just such a wealth of knowledge. And he was this old guy. And so he wasn't like really super energetic, but there was a conviction in him, and there was an absolute rock solid commitment to his vision of the select organizations that he stood behind, and anybody that he stood behind would benefit from his vast knowledge, his marketing expertise, and his integrity, and his community leadership roles that he had. Is when you meet somebody like that, you'll be forever changed, and you see why. You can very easily see those qualities that made them, the titan that they ended up being. Yeah, he was a pretty amazing guy. It was so funny too. As a fundraiser, a board member and a fundraiser, he said he would often joke about people crossing the street when he was walking downtown because they knew he was going to ask him for money. He never took it personally, but he just kind of chuckled about it. And he was an amazing fundraiser because he would just tap people. Being a community leader, he knew the people who had the means to make a difference. And it was a peer-to-peer ask. It wasn't like an executive director going to this leadership guy going, hey, this is what we do. Would you support us? He'd be going, I know you can do this. This is what I need you to do. I need you to write this check, and for this cause. And then I want you to come to this gala and bring 5 of your friends. And nobody said no to him. He was amazing.
Wouldn't that be great if we had that same kind of convictions for our own causes? I think too many times we let our own personal insecurities or our personal downfalls or whatever the thing is get in the way of us being the best person for our mission. So many times, especially with startup nonprofits, they're asking someone for $1,000, knowing full well that they don't have $1,000 in the bank. And there's that mismatch of, personal integrity and what you're looking for from the organization. And they don't have to be in alignment, because you're not asking on behalf of you. You're asking on behalf of the mission and the cause and the children that you're trying to help, or these animals that don't have a home, or for people that don't have a home, or whatever your cause is, whatever your jam is. You're asking on behalf of them, because you're their advocate. You're advocating for their wellness and well-being.
And sometimes it's just telling a story. I mean, some of my most successful asks were not straight up asks. We'd have lunch and I'd tell a story, and they would get hooked and they'd go, "How can I help?" And I'm like, "Well, since you brought it up, funny you should mention that."
You should be able to answer that question. Of all the questions you may or may not know the answer to. Oh, that's something I want to say. If you don't know the answer to a question, be like, "You know what? That's an excellent question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'm going to have my team get back to you with that answer." That is a perfectly okay answer.
And by the way, it gives you an opportunity to circle back and have another conversation with your donor.
It does. It lets you know that you're going to follow up with conviction and integrity and making sure you're delivering the right information, and gives you another touch point, another contact point. That helps them believe in you and what you're saying and what you're doing even more. So don't be afraid to say, "I'm not quite sure on that. I'm going to make sure I get you the correct answer. I'm going to get it in a timely manner. I'm going to get back to you with exactly what you need." So don't be scared to do that either. You don't have to have all the answers. I'm the host of this show, and I learn stuff from each and every guest, which I absolutely love. I love learning. I love hearing about their passion, but I don't have all the stinking answers.
Right. And that's part of the charm. Right? You don't have to. You don't need to.
Yeah, you don't have to. I don't have to have all the answers. We've been conditioned, again, in schools that you have to have the answer to the question. You don't have to have the answer. There's so many unanswered questions out there. How do we solve world hunger? We don't have that one solved yet. There's people working.
Well, and there's no one right answer either.
And there's no one right answer, especially when it comes to things like fundraising. We were talking before we hopped on here. You got to get your stretches in and make sure you're warmed up and all that fun stuff. I can't have anyone, throwing their back out where we're having these conversations. So got to get the stretching in. And I was talking about my interview with Isaac Belden and how to use credit card processing to partner with an organization to put more money in the business's pocket and have them support you in the same breath. And someone said that they were crying as they listened to the episode, because it's exactly what they needed, because there's not one right way to do fundraising. I talked to someone who did a Family Feud, and I interviewed someone yesterday that talks about the 12 days of Christmas. They changed it into the 12 days of giving, and that interview is going to come out sometime soon. And they have people that do treasure hunts around town, and they're actually providing value because they're delivering customers to those stores. And in order to get the credit for entering, they have to show a proof of purchase. They got to show that receipt. So they're bringing people to the restaurant, to the store, to the coffee shop. And there is a partnership that goes both ways. There's so many different ways to do this thing. If you haven't heard my episode yet with Bruce Rosenthal, get on that, because that is a way someone uses their marketing budget to support you instead of their philanthropy budget. And chances are the marketing budget is way bigger. There's just not one right way to do this. There's some wrong ways. There's some clear wrong ways to do this thing, but there isn't one right way. There's so many different opportunities and different facets. And if 2020 is not the year to do something different and outside the box, I don't know when you would find the time ever again to do it, because people are looking for something different. They're always looking for a way to stand out. I love it.
Absolutely. I love the creativity that fundraising requires. It's that partnership between private enterprise and public enterprise, and everybody wants to give. I believe that people are just innately generous and they want to give, and all they need to do that is to be given the opportunity, and if you don't ask, then 100% of the time you're not getting anything.
Yep. If you don't ask, it's a guaranteed no. So every day that you go by without asking, every person that you walk by without asking, and I'm not just saying, give me $1,000, like walking. I'm not saying that. But if you're not giving them a chance to buy into your story and your mission and your vision, you're robbing them of the opportunity to bless you. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah. So it's really helping people feel better about themselves, because giving feels really good. and you're giving them an opportunity to light up the world a little bit. And I think we need a lot more of that. We need more people lit up, feeling good about what they're doing.
Absolutely. Light up the world. Cynthia, where can people find you?
I am all over LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and do a search for Gregory Cynthia, I'll be the one who pops up. I'm publishing like 15 articles a week there. And I also have a website called C. Gregory Creativity. And also, I love emails. If anybody wants to reach out to me and ask me any questions or explore anything that we've talked about from the writing end or the coaching end, they can write to me at coachcynthia.gregory@gmail.com. And I respond to all emails.
That's fantastic. We don't do this for our health, even though it's a lot of fun. We do this because we want to interact with you. So if you've been listening to this and you're loving what you're saying, drop Cynthia a line. Say you were a great guest. Say, Cynthia, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. It's definitely this. Whatever the thing is, reach out, say something, get involved, drop a line, show up, because so much more happens when you actually show up. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Nonprofit Architect. To listen to all our past shows, visit http://nonprofitarchitect.org. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our show. Thank you.